Everyone. My name is Emma Humberstone, and this is my field project presentation. All right, so I went to the Wyoming County Drug Treatment Court um, on June 10th, and this is where um, it was held in the courthouse in Warsaw, New York, where I'm from. There were many people in attendance. The people in attendance were Judge Ogeen, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, a couple social workers. I think there were about three social workers. There was one probation officer, and then there was the court coordinator who coordinates all of the drug treatment court individuals, and then obviously the participants. And then also, I didn't name that there was a court reporter as well, that was in attendance. All right, so this experience impacted me as a professional by allowing me to understand more about the criminal justice system and how each system, including behavioral health, work together to help these individuals succeed. So during the drug treatment court, I did notice that there were a lot of people, chiming in, wanting to do everything they could to help this individual. Um, so the mental health professionals were also chiming in, just making sure, everyone was on the same page, as well as, their probation officer. So everyone really worked together to make this all happen. This experience also allowed me to gain insight on the importance of a multidisciplinary approach where all probation officers, attorneys, judges, social workers, and providers work together. So, like I just said, when I was attending, I was able to see what happened in the drug treatment court and how it helped these individuals, um, how it helped their lives, and how their decision to make a positive change, instead of going into the system, and how it changed their life. And it was actually really cool. I did see someone graduate from the program that day. So they attended their last court appearance, which was really cool. Everyone was really excited for them. It is, a long process. I think it's about like a year to a year and a half that you have to attend the treatment court, and it's usually every week that you have to attend it. So it is definitely a long, long process that these individuals have to go through. Um, this experience also strengthened my understanding on how substance use can affect individuals from different backgrounds. With Wyoming County, we don't have a lot of different cultural backgrounds. We do have some, but it's mainly, white area. So there wasn't a lot there. But I do know that because I asked the person facilitating the drug treatment court about this, and they said that they do from time to time get different individuals with different cultural backgrounds, and it affects them, each individual, differently. And lastly, as a future social worker, this experience encouraged me to take into consideration all walks of life, and allowed me to kind of gain insight on what these individuals, go through and how they got to where they are today. And it definitely, made me, you know, have empathy for these individuals, because they do deserve that, and they are, making that positive change to kind of better their life. All right, the next question, how did this experience change or impact my view about substance use? So previously, I used to work in a substance facilities, like a rehab facility. So I was familiar with, drug treatment court. I was familiar with, individuals who are struggling day to day, and what they have to go through. But this experience definitely, you know, uh, helped me realize so much more. And when I attended drug treatment court, I was able to see that substance use disorders affect every kind of individual. It doesn't matter where you're from, your income status, every individual can be affected. Um, it also helped me see that it is a complex disorder and it is not just a matter of poor choices. Um, I was also able to see that there are many factors that go into substance use. These factors may include trauma, mental health issues, family dynamics, and then also the community that you're in. Um, Attending this treatment court showed me that this process is long. Like I said before, it requires a lot of, support from many individuals, including those people in that room. So like the judge, the social workers. I was really impressed to see how many people were actually fighting for these individuals and wanting them to make these positive choices and get clean and yeah, it was great to see. But lastly, this experience showed me that advocating is very important for these individuals. Sometimes, individuals who are struggling don't necessarily know how to advocate, and they might not have the resources. And it is important that we as social workers use our voices to advocate for these people, especially if they, want to receive the help that, they're asking for. So I thought that was very cool to see that there were a lot of people advocating. Okay, so my key takeaways from this experience, I had a lot of key takeaways. It was very insightful to me. I've never been in a courthouse, first of all, so that was really cool to see. I've only seen them on TV, so it was really cool to see it in person. Um, and yeah, so I learned a lot about the recovery process and how long it actually takes. And it's never, you're never fixed right away. It is a process and it takes a lot of support for these individuals in order for them to succeed. Um, I also learned that substance use disorders affects many individuals, and then it also affects people's life, including not just the individuals, but their families, their community, and then their overall health and employment was a big one that I noticed. And then when working with the individual, using positive reinforcement, I noticed can really build that trust between you and the individual. And then it increases the individual's odds of succeeding long term. And then lastly, I think this is a big one. Not everyone's recovery is the same. Many individuals may fail before they actually succeed. And a lot of individuals, face different barriers than others, which may decrease their odds. So it is just important to notice that or take into consideration that, not everyone's path is the same. But yeah, those are my key takeaways. I had a really great experience. Um, and I gained a lot of useful information that I can take in my future. So, but yeah, so that is my presentation. I do have some discussion questions that I want to ask the group. Let me just find it. Okay, so did any of you guys, before attending your meetings, whatever you guys attended, did you guys have any biases before attending?
I did not. This is Danielle. And I think it's really awesome that you would ask this question because a lot of people go in with a certain mindset and they come out with a completely different one. So it's a great question.
Yeah, great.
Um, I don't know if it was exactly a bias, just because this is something that obviously, as I have grown, I have learned that it's very different. But in my culture, I'm Hispanic, there's not really awareness about this topic. So it's something you don't really talk about. It's something where someone struggling with alcoholism or with substance use disorder is typically like the unhoused person asking for money. It's not like your cousin, it's not the doctor, it's never someone you know. So growing up, that was a lot of what I saw. And obviously, like I said, I've changed that, especially with school, working
Yeah.
in a human services field, but I feel like a lot of people still have that bias.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's, if you haven't experienced it firsthand, it is, I guess, normal to have a certain to an extent, but that's why it's so great to be able to attend um different meetings to gain that information. So yeah, thank you guys for speaking up. I have one more question. Has any of you guys ever experienced or attended a drug treatment court before?
I haven't personally. I do know somebody that has. Um, I also just wanted to say, Emma, I really appreciated that you noticed that all the workers there in drug treatment court were just as happy for the client as the client was, because I think a lot of people don't notice that. But I think behind the scenes, usually facilitators and the social workers and everything else are rooting for the client just as much as they're rooting for themselves. So I'm really happy that you noticed that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very nice to see that because I feel like, a lot of people kind of look down on these individuals, and it was really great to see that, people were very excited about their success. So I was very happy to see that. I was smiling. I was even clapping. I was like, I don't even know you, but I am so
Yeah,
happy for you.
that's
Yeah. But yeah, does anyone else have any experience with it? Okay.
I don't, but I would like, I wonder what specifically brings someone to drug court.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, so I actually didn't know that before I attended. So basically, from my perspective, and what I've gained from attending is that when you are in trouble with the law, the judge gives you an option to either do the time in jail or go to drug treatment court.
mm,
So a lot of individuals obviously, don't want to go to jail, so they opt out and do the drug treatment court. And I think that's a great, great thing that we have, giving the option to these individuals who maybe, want to make a positive change but don't have the resources necessarily and don't have the support. So I'm really happy to know that we have something like that um, in all counties because I know it's everywhere. So, but yeah, but that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much
thank
for
you.
listening.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Talia, and I attended 3 self-help groups. So I attended an Al-Anon group and a Narcotics Anonymous group and an Alcoholic Anonymous group. So I would like to start by giving a summary of all 3 meetings, just because I feel like there was a lot of similarities and it'll be easier to break it down. And then I can just talk about the differences between each group. So all meetings I attended virtually. The NA group was a hybrid group based out of Maryland, but I attended my part virtually. Um, some of the similarities included the serenity prayer, welcoming newcomers, recognizing milestones. These were typically 1 month, some recognized 24 hours, some groups 1 month, and then it was 3 months, 6 months, I believe it was a year, 18 months, and there was actually someone celebrating 3 years sober. Some read the 12 steps, the reading of tradition number 6, which is the tradition for the month of June, and all groups allowed members to share using a 4-minute time limit, which were also encouraged to be respectful of other members sharing. Something I really liked about all groups is that participation was encouraged. So some people took turns reading the Serenity Prayer, others read readings from books. The 12 steps were also split between members, and it was all on a voluntary basis. So the Al-Anon group is a group for people that have loved ones that are struggling with alcoholism. This group was called Choosing Choices. And something I noticed in this group is that there was a pattern of childhood trauma. There was a lot of people that were also in recovery, but their experience growing up was in an alcoholic household, which could have influenced where they are right now. I really liked learning about how people are navigating this experience in general. There was a lot of different points of views. There was people that were there for family members, other were there for friends. There was someone that was there for a distant family friend, which I thought was very nice for them to be considered of that person, even though they're not really close. And each person just shared their experience navigating how their lives are affected by other people's alcohol consumption. Something that I really liked was that someone shared a quote that is used a lot in AA, and which is, "We didn't cause it, we can't control it, we can't cure it." This seemed to be a very helpful quote to someone that was really overwhelmed, seeking help for someone that they love, but they didn't really have the tools. And in this specific group, it was not encouraged to give advice. So it was more like everyone sharing their experiences and what they're struggling with and how it's affecting them. So it felt like that person was very overwhelmed that they shared their experience and they weren't getting really any answers. But that quote seemed to have helped them a lot. The next group is AA. This was a women's group, and it's called AA The Way Out. Something I noticed there is that there were people of all different levels of sobriety. Some were contemplating, some were sober for years, some were sober for a week and had difficulties with relapsing, but were very, very hopeful. In this group, there was more of a sharing of tools. Also hope of keep trying again. The person that shared that they were relapsing quite frequently did disclose that if it does happen again, because they have a feeling it might happen again, that they're just going to keep coming back, keep trying, starting over, which I felt was pretty nice. And I'm sure that a lot of people, that helped a lot of people. Something I learned new from this is the term dry alcoholics. So this term is used to describe people that are sober from the use of alcohol, but still engage in a lot of similar behaviors. So maybe they replace alcohol for something else, maybe it's just unhealthy habits, it's dynamics with friendships, just a lot of the behaviors that contradict the 12 steps, I guess you could say. And a lot of the women in this group have partners that were dry alcoholics, and they shared their struggles with living with someone who, although is not consuming alcohol, is still engaging in a lot of choices that they don't align with anymore. And like I mentioned, this was virtual and there were people from all different states. So for the NA group, this group is based out of Maryland. So there are a group of people in Maryland. There were actually quite a lot of people on that group, probably about 15. And then there were some people who joined virtually. The group is called Glad to Be Alive. Something that was different from other groups is that they gave a moment of silence for those that are still struggling with addiction. They really emphasize to keep coming back. So every time someone shared their experience, when they recognize milestones, they really emphasize keep coming back, which I thought was pretty nice and serves as like a reminder, like, hey, you're here, like keep trying. This group really focused on the 12 steps. A lot of them shared the difficulties of moving from one step to another, which was a great learning experience for me because I guess I never really thought of how the 12 steps exactly work. Turns out you can be in one step for years. It all depends on you, the work you do, what your sponsor thinks, and that's how they determine like when you can proceed to the next step. Someone expressed a lot of difficulty moving into step 8 because step 8 is where you make amends. So you're supposed to make a list of all the people you did wrong, what you did, and you're supposed to make amends to an extent. If it's a situation where the person's not here or you reaching out to them will do more harm than good, then it's discouraged to contact them. So that person was in step 7 for a really long time because they didn't even know where to start in terms of making amends, but they did report that they will start next week. On the same topic of making amends, which I never thought of this too, and it was really eye-opening, was a mom that shared that she has really young children and they don't know about the addiction. They don't know about recovery. They don't know about mom going to NA. So she had a difficult time making amends to them because she didn't know how to explain that to them. So what she did was her like own version of making amends. So making amends to them would be going to NA, would be frequently working on staying sober, would be knowing how to use her coping strategies instead of going home and being aggressive with that because the house wasn't clean. So that was her version of making amends, which I felt was pretty nice. So I will now like to talk about my experience as a professional, how this impacted my experience. So as a professional, I feel like this really impacted me by deepening my understanding and empathy towards individuals struggling with substance use disorder. It really highlighted the importance of community and support in the recovery process. This was something that really, really, really stood out to me. Just because, can we please go to the previous slide? No, the other one. The other one. Oh, okay. So yeah, it really helped me view how a safe space can really help someone. These individuals are very comfortable with sharing their experiences. It seems like a lot of them go to frequent meetings, and that's what helps them stay sober. So this experience helped me remain really mindful of that. Also, the value of creating a non-judgmental and respectful environment for sharing personal experiences. These are very, very, very unique and a lot of times vulnerable and traumatic experiences. And just seeing how these individuals are able to share them so freely, knowing that they weren't going to be judged and knowing that there was support for them was also really, really impactful. Um, as I mentioned during Emma's presentation, I personally don't have, I don't want to say I don't have biases because I feel like we all have some sort of preconceived notions. But growing up, what I saw has changed. Obviously my perspective has changed since then. But it reminded me of, okay, like addiction can look different for everyone. It can be a woman, it can be men, um it could be anyone of any gender, age, socioeconomic status. So it was a good reminder to see the diversity within these group settings. So how did this experience impact my view about substance use? Like I mentioned before about my experience growing up in my culture, I feel like as a society in general, we tend to be conditioned that substance use or addiction looks a certain way. Um, I feel like it would be really helpful if everyone could attend one of these meetings, just because I feel like it would really help people be a little more open-minded, less judgmental. But I also want to be mindful that those are safe spaces for a lot of people. So having people with significant biases may also impact the safety of those spaces. But I feel like it would be really helpful to stay away from those biases as a society if we just took the time to talk to people that have struggled with addiction. Um, Another takeaway is that we need to be a little bit more mindful of all the effects of addiction. A lot of people shared how it affected family, it affected friends, it affected their society by things that happened while they were in active addiction. I feel like a lot of times those are things that aren't really talked about. And a lot of people did emphasize the need to make amends for those things that they did. Um, and as I mentioned before, just a judgment-free zone would be really important for this. So my key takeaways are the importance of community supports. I believe that having the support from your community can really make an impact. Just having someone listen to them, like I said, in many of the groups, it was more people just sharing their experiences, and the simple act of sharing and knowing that someone's listening to them without judgment really made an impact on them. Um, I also feel like connecting through the AA and NA traditions really helped a lot of members. Just following the traditions, reading the literature really seemed to make an impact on them. Um, and then encouraging open sharing, it seems like I mentioned before, the groups really allow that space for people to just share their experiences, the challenges they overcame, and it seemed to help a lot of comers understand that they're not alone and that there's a change that can be made. And that's it for my presentation. So for the discussion, something that came up during one of my groups was the accidental use of AI transcripts, which did disturb a lot of the members. It was more of an automatic thing that happened to the person that was hosting the Zoom, and without realizing it until several people brought it up. Some even include thinking about leaving the group because of this. So I feel like it's important for us to be mindful of all the ways that life is changing with technology and how some of these people have been attending groups for 30, 40 years and seeing changes such as AI transcripts, which could violate their privacy, could be very distressing. And I was just wondering if you guys had any experiences like that in your groups.
Um, so for me, I didn't have any experience when attending drug treatment court, but I do know that AI obviously is taking over everything. And the big thing about AI is I think people are worried, about their information. And like you said before, like their confidential information being put out there.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I think we as, social workers need to, there's a time and a place for it, obviously. Um, but especially in a setting like, those types of um those those types of meetings, I don't think there really is a necessity for AI.
Mhm.
Um, I wonder how did the person react when she or he or she noticed that the AI transcript was being used.
She stopped it immediately. She
Okay.
did apologize and she did clarify that the transcript was deleted. But a lot of people were upset, which is understandable. I feel like, especially in settings such as like support groups, you're looking more for like a personal connection, people that can relate to you, not so much like a medical slash professional experience, and that can kind of like blend the both. But I understand why they were upset, and I'm glad that it was addressed. And I
Mhm.
was actually surprised when I saw it too, but I didn't know if that was like typical. Um, so I was just observing.
Yeah.
I have heard of AI being used for like to do transcripts for meetings and self-help groups and stuff, but I've always heard that you had to have like consent signed beforehand. And
Mm.
I've heard that it was like used for for note-taking purposes to try to make it
Mhm.
easier for the facilitator, but I can definitely see like why it would make someone uncomfortable because you're not really sure where that information is going.
Right. And like I said, a lot of people are sharing very vulnerable experiences. There was someone that was sharing um, concerns about their relationship, and I'm sure that that's something that they haven't really shared with others just based on how they were talking. So it
Mm-hmm.
is, concerning to not know where your information might go.
Definitely.
Well, thank you all.
Okay. My name is Emily, and I attended 3 different self-help groups: Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and Alteen. So the first group that I attended was the Alcoholics Anonymous group, and it was called Turning It Over. This group welcomed LGBTQ plus individuals and allies, and it provided a supportive environment for people seeking recovery from alcohol addiction. This was a beginner speaker meeting, which focused on sharing experiences related to early recovery and the challenges of maintaining sobriety. One of the themes that stood out to me throughout this meeting was the concept of surrender and learning to turn it over, as the meeting is called. Several speakers discussed how difficult it was to let go of control and trust the recovery process. They shared personal stories about recognizing that their attempts to manage their addiction on their own were unsuccessful and that accepting help from others was an important step towards recovery. Hearing these experiences reinforced the importance of humility, honesty, and willingness in the recovery journey. Another topic discussed was the value of community and connection. Members of this group emphasized that recovery is not something that must be done alone. The group offered encouragement to any newcomers in the group and reminded them that setbacks do not define their worth or determine their future success. I was amazed by the genuine support and acceptance shown among participants, regardless of where they were in their recovery journey. And as a social work student, I found this meeting valuable because it highlighted the role of peer support in substance use recovery. Um, while professional treatment and counseling are important, mutual aid groups like AA provide ongoing support, accountability, and a sense of belonging. The meeting also demonstrated how shared lived experiences can reduce feelings of isolation and increase hope for change. This experience increased my understanding of the recovery process and reinforced the importance of creating non judgmental spaces where individuals feel safe discussing their struggles. I left the meeting with a greater appreciation for the resilience of those in recovery and the power of community in promoting long term sobriety. Um, the second meeting that I attended was called Couch Recovery, which was an NA meeting. Attending this meeting provided valuable insight into the recovery process and the importance of peer support. It was a virtual format, and so that creates an accessible and welcoming environment where participants felt comfortable sharing their experiences, challenges, and successes related to recovery. Despite being online, there was a very strong sense of connection among the members, which demonstrates that meaningful support can occur in virtual settings just as much as in person settings. One of the themes that stood out to me in this meeting was the importance of community and recovery. Participants discussed how connecting with others who have experienced similar struggles helped reduce feelings of isolation and provided encouragement during difficult times. Many of the members in this group emphasized that recovery is an ongoing process that requires commitment, honesty, and support from others. Hearing the personal experiences within this group highlighted the value of mutual aid groups in promoting long term recovery. Another important topic that was discussed during couch recovery was the use of healthy coping strategies. Members share different ways that they manage stress, cravings, and emotional challenges without turning to substance use. This reinforced the idea that recovery involves not only abstaining from substance use, but also developing healthier ways to handle life's difficulties. The discussion demonstrated resilience and the willingness of participants to learn from both successes and setbacks. So, as a social work student, I found this meeting beneficial to me because it illustrated the role that peer led recovery groups can play alongside professional treatment services. The meeting reflected many different social work values like respect for the dignity and worth of individuals, the importance of human relationships, and the promotion of self determination. The participants were encouraged to share openly without fear of judgment, which created a very supportive environment that fostered growth and healing. This meeting increased my understanding of the recovery journey and the importance of ongoing social support. Um, the meeting reinforced that recovery is not a process individuals must navigate alone. And I also left with a greater appreciation for the strength and perseverance of those in recovery and a better understanding of how community connection of community based support can contribute to positive outcomes. The third meeting that I went to was a family group meeting called Sharing Our Serenity. Attending the Sharing Our Serenity Al Anon family group meeting provided me with a different perspective on the impact of alcohol use disorder. Unlike AA meetings, which focus on individuals struggling with alcohol addiction, this meeting focused on the experiences of family members and friends who have been affected by another person's drinking. The meeting emphasized that addiction affects not only the individual, but also those closest to them. One primary theme that was discussed during this meeting was the importance of focusing on one's own well being rather than attempting to control another person's behavior. Participants shared experiences of feeling responsible for their loved one's choices and the emotional burden that accompanied those feelings. Through Al Anon, many members reported learning that they cannot control another person's drinking, but they can control how they respond to situations and take steps to improve their own emotional well being. Another topic that stood out was the concept of boundaries. Several members discussed how establishing healthy boundaries helped them reduce stress, improve relationships, and regain a sense of personal peace. Hearing these stories helped me better understand how difficult it can be for family members to balance caring for a loved one while also protecting their own mental and emotional well being. And as a social work student, I found this meeting valuable because it highlighted the systemic impact of substance use disorders on families. The meeting reinforced the idea that effective treatment and recovery often involve addressing family dynamics and providing support not only to the individual with the addiction, but also to those affected by it. The supportive environment allowed participants to share openly without fear of judgment, which demonstrated the healing power of peer support. So my first question was, how did this experience impact me as a professional? Attending these recovery support meetings enhanced my understanding of substance use disorders and the recovery process from multiple perspectives. Through the AA meetings, I gained insight into the challenges individuals face when maintaining sobriety and the importance of peer support, accountability, and hope in recovery. The Al Anon meeting provided a valuable perspective on how substance use affects family members and loved ones, highlighting the emotional impact addiction can have on an entire support system. These experiences reinforced the importance of taking a holistic, in person and environment approach when working with clients affected by substance use disorders. Um, this experience changed and impacted my view about substance use because I somewhat understood substance use from coursework and my previous practicum. But these meetings helped me better appreciate the personal and family impact of addiction. Hearing individuals openly discuss their struggles, successes, setbacks, and recovery journeys made the experience more meaningful than simply learning about substance use in a classroom setting. The meetings also reinforced that addiction is a complex condition that affects many areas of a person's life, including relationships, mental health, physical health, employment, and family functioning. The Al Anon meeting in particular emphasized that family members often experience their own challenges and may need support and healing as well. These experiences strengthened my understanding that recovery is not a one size fits all process and that each individual and family has unique strengths, challenges, and recovery needs. Some of my key takeaways is the importance of connection and support in the recovery process across all three meetings. Participants emphasized the value of having community of people who understand their experiences and can offer encouragement without judgment. I also learned that recovery involves much more than abstaining from substances. It also includes personal growth, accountability, emotional healing, and the development of healthy coping strategies. Another really important takeaway was the significance of family involvement and support. The Al Anon meeting highlighted how substance use affects loved ones and demonstrated the importance of helping family members establish healthy boundaries and practice self-care. And finally, these meetings reinforced the importance of empathy, active listening, and meeting people where they are in their recovery journey. So overall, attending these meetings increased my appreciation for the resilience of individuals and families affected by substance use disorders. The experience strengthened my understanding of recovery oriented care and provided valuable insights that I can apply in future social work practice. Right now, I'm going to open it up to our group discussion. Today, I really wanted to talk about the concept of surrender, which was a really recurring theme throughout the meetings that I attended. In both the AA meeting and Couch Recovery, members talked about surrendering their attempts to control their addiction and recognizing that they could not successfully manage alone. In the family group, family members discussed surrendering the belief that they could control another person's drinking and learning to focus on their own well being instead. Often the word surrender sounds like giving up. However, in recovery, surrender isn't about weakness or defeat. It's more about accepting reality, letting go of what we cannot control, and becoming open to support, change, and growth. So I guess my question right now is, if anyone wants to answer, is when you hear the word surrender, what thoughts or feelings come to mind?
So when I hear surrender, I feel like I just think of like letting go. Um, Kind of letting go of all of the struggles that you have, or that you're feeling, and then just kind of yeah, just I guess I would say just like letting go is what I think about when I hear surrender.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with you.
Based on my experience with attending self-help groups for this project, something I noticed is that a lot of people talked about the shame, the guilt, just the burden of what they have done and how it's affected others, how heavy that was on them. And just letting go and focusing on what they can do from now on instead of what they did has really helped them. So that's what I think of when I hear surrender, just focusing on the things that they can change, not the things that have already passed. And I feel like that can apply to anyone in general. You know, we all have our own struggles. So just moving forward and letting go what has happened and moving forward.
I think that that was a really good question, Emily. And I think the word surrender, like Talia was saying, in life in general, giving up control over a situation and just realizing that you only have the control of your reaction to it, and sometimes not even that, is really powerful. And I think a lot of people just in daily life do struggle with the thought of something else being in control of them.
Absolutely. One of my other questions was, why do you think accepting what we cannot control can be difficult for so many people?
Well, I think that a lot of people like to be in control of their own life, of their own free will. So when you don't have control over that, you almost feel, I guess, in my experience, I feel so like, I don't even know what word I'm trying to sing. I feel not okay, basically, when I'm not in control of all of my, feelings. So I think a lot of people are also like that as well. And it's a hard thing to accept, um, especially, people who are trying to recover from substance use. So
Also, one thing I'd like to mention is that we I don't know. Control is something that we all have struggled with. When you have substance use disorder, you have no control. When you are in active addiction, your brain is controlling you. It's an illness that people have to succumb to. So you realize that feeling of not having any control. And when you surrender, it's actually very freeing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too, Danielle. I like that perspective too. One of the biggest lessons that I took away from these meetings is that recovery often begins when people stop fighting battles that they can't win alone, whether it is an individual struggling with substance use or a family member affected by a loved one's addiction. Surrendering control can create space for healing, support, and personal growth.